Hi, I'm Chris, help Joe to run Wrong Speed Records. I play in Hey Colossus and Haress, and this is my 5 in 5. Now for my 5 in 5, I could pick loads of records, but I'm on the internet enough talking about records. No one's ever going to ask me to do one of those rig rundowns, so I'm going to break the rules, because they're my rules. I'm going to break them, and I'm going to do 5 inanimate pieces of music making equipment that I would save if my house was on fire. So start the timer now. This is number 1. This is a Squier Telecaster made in Japan in 1991. I bought it in 1996 when I was, or 1995 I think, maybe when I was 17. I can't quite remember. But it was the first guitar I ever bought with my own money. I was cash rich because I worked in a potato packing factory after school, and I walked into live music in Peterborough and it was on the wall for £109, and so I bought it. And I bought it because it looked like the guitar Graham Coxon played in the Girls and Boys video by Blur. First gig I ever did with it was at a horrible place called the Windmill Rooms in Cambridgeshire, out in the middle of a field near March, where I grew up. And at the end of the gig, because I was drunk on Archers and Lemonade or Pernod and Black, I threw it at my amp and smashed the neck off it. I almost left it behind that night. A load of skinheads turned up and kicked the place in, and we ran away. And as I was running away, I saw it, leant against the front desk of the place and grabbed it and took it with me. And it's really lucky I did. Also, it was the guitar I took when I went to university. I found that a really difficult time, and this guitar really reminds me of how important music was to me when I was about 18 or 19, and you know what a welcome retreat it was at a really tricky point. And every time I play this guitar, I think about that. In 2002, my friend Ian Scanlon had all his equipment stolen from the sunroof of his car when he left it in there overnight outside the Brixton Academy. And I sold him this for £40 so that he could carry on making music. And he ended up joining Hey Colossus, the band I now play in, and he played this on the first album by them, which is kind of weird. I bought it back in about 2007 for £40 again, thanks Ian. I love it. That's number 1. Number 2 is this. This is a Electro Harmonix Big Muff pedal that looks like it's been buried underground. But they're supposed to be made out of tank metal, these things, but I don't think anyone would have made a tank out of something that rusted that badly. Around the same sort of time I bought the number 1, the guitar, I became aware that you could distort the guitar and make it sound much cooler, and someone told me I needed to get a distortion pedal. So in the back of the guitar magazine I had at the time, it said there was a company in Portsmouth that would order these in from Russia. They turn up in a wooden box, and I think they were £40. So I bought one, and I've had it on and off since. I did briefly sell it to my friend Ross, and then forgot I sold it, and then took it back, and then he very calmly told me some years later that he did actually buy it off me, but thanks Ross for letting me keep it. This is the best distortion pedal. It's probably the best distortion pedal because it's the first one I got, so I learned how to use it, and there's something in that, I think, you know, like the not being paralysed by choice and having the time to work out what something does. But anyway, it does this. Number 3, this is an SJB Audio Power Ant amplifier, and it was built in the 1990s in a shed by a guy called Brian Jeffrey in Frome in Somerset. It's got an A on the front made out of wood. They made one called a Hornet, which had an H on it, which you can probably guess. So I like the fact it comes from Somerset. It kind of reminds me of Wrong Speed Records in a way, in that the idea is really good, but maybe the execution sometimes is a bit lacking. Sorry, Jay. It's got valves in it that you can't get anymore. And a guy that fixes my amps described it as the least reliable thing he'd ever worked on. We bought 3 of these in a job lot with the band Haress from a guy who inherited the repair shop from Brian when he died. And they just give us nothing but trouble. Totally stressful thing to own, always breaking down. Sometimes I want to take a lump hammer to it. However, it just sounds beautiful, and I'm kind of like, you know, I'm rooting for it. Number 4 is this. This is a Maestro Echoplex tape delay machine. Underneath that lid there, if you can see it, there's a tape whirring around, and it records everything that goes into it and plays it back a split moment later to sound like they're sort of echoes that you get in nature. It's absolutely amazing. It also is the sound of dub. I always really wanted one of these, and I bought pedals that tried to replicate it and stuff, and then one came up for sale in Nottingham, and I went round to go and pick it up, and it turned out the guy who was selling it was a huge Hank Marvin and the Shadows fan, and he just used to have this in his house and play Shadows riffs through it. But his eyesight was failing and he needed to sell it, and it was all very emotional when I went to go and pick it up. and he really gave me it for an extremely cheap price, but he made me promise I wouldn't sell it. And I kind of like that. There's karma in these things, you know. It is the best bit of equipment I've ever bought, and I can't stop using it. This is what it sounds like. Number five. This is a Univox Hi-Flier guitar from 1973 or something, I think. I love these guitars ever since I saw Kurt Cobain using one when I was a kid, and then a few years later Asa Osbourne using one in Lungfish. They're really hard to get in the UK, but I saw this on Craigslist in Brooklyn when my girlfriend was on holiday there and I was at home sulking. So I used some savings, which at the time wasn't that much money. They were pretty cheap, and managed to convince Katie to bring it back for me. Thank you, Katie. I used to play in a band called Grey Hairs for about 10 years, and I used this on pretty much every gig and every recording that we ever did with that band. I'm not one for like kind of giving instruments personalities or, you know, naming them or anything like that. But the last gig that band ever did, which we didn't know was going to be the last gig, this pickup died and ended up having to be rewound and redone. But this pickup died halfway through it, and I think it was maybe this guitar's way of saying like time's up on that one. Maybe, I don't know. But I love this guitar. It's absolutely beautiful. It's got a breeder sticker on the back as well. But thanks very much for listening. That's my 5 in 5. Maybe I'll do one about records some other time. Sorry, Jay. Bye.